The only thing I have to say is I'm sorry for delaying this video for so long. It had to be out much sooner.
Egg has been planted.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Mad Science. We will be talking today about the distortion damage, and more importantly, in distortion damage in 3.15. CG have implemented some serious changes to it, and we're gonna do everything to unveil the truth behind those nasty guns. What can you achieve with them? What you use them for? And how you use them, alright? First of all, before diving into the game, we will jump into the browser instead of a game and get to Erkul to see what are the stats, what have changed, and how it works, okay? Here we go. This is all obviously live streamed as usual and will be cut for YouTube, so everyone who is sticking with me on the live stream, thank you so much, boys. Everyone who will be watching this on YouTube, you will get a shorter version of it without me stalling out, and thank you for the views in advance. Okay, so distortion guns, distortion damage, right? Distortion damage, first of all, is not only dealt by guns. Distortion damage is dealt by guns and EMPs. Both of those deal the same damage, distortion. It's just the way they deal it is a bit different, but it's just dealing distortion damage. What is distortion damage? Distortion damage is a thing that will not physically destroy your ship, your hull integrity, but will apply distortion damage to the components that are prone to that damage, which will distort them, which means it will prevent them functioning properly. Not everything in the ships can be distorted. For example, as far as I know, for now, engines are not being able to be distorted, but CG did a lot of stuff this patch on PTU, and we're like almost live, so I decided to do this video today. A lot of things are being distorted, like all the major components are being distorted that you're used to equipping in your ships, including quantum drives, coolers, power plants, shields, and the guns. The guns are being distorted too right now consistently. Previously you could see sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, as with all the components, but now your usual visible components that you equip on your ship are being distorted, right? So let's get to the guns, okay? We're on the very useful site Erkul. If you don't know what it is, it's erkul.games. You can get a lot of info here. We're gonna use it to first theorycraft and explain a bit, and then we're gonna dive into the game, okay? So we have to find, first of all, distortion damage. Let's see, explosion. We can sort it out by explosion, which will put all the distortion guns here because they all are AoE. Right now, not a single gun delivers a direct distortion damage because it will just not work on the terms of game mechanics. You need distortion to be AoE hits to actually deal damage to the components because they are inside of the ship, right? So let's select everything we have. That's about it. Let's press compare selected. Okay, maybe zoom out a bit. I hope that's visible enough. We have all the list here without a need to scroll. Let's level it out by sizes, and we basically see that what we have is repeaters that are called XJ 1, 2, 3 to the sizes respectively. We have sucker punches, which are called just a sucker punch, or L and XL with 2 and 3 in sizes. Those are the cannons. The XJs are the repeaters. Sucker punches are the cannons. We have EVSD, which is a size 2 distortion cannon specifically for a Vanguard nose. We have ATVS, which is a distortion repeater specifically for a Vanguard nose, size 2. Starting from size 4 and up to size 6, I just didn't include size 6 because there is no size 6 hard points currently in the game. We have 2 distortion scatter guns, Salvation and Absolution. Salvation is a size 4, Absolution is a size 5. You can find places to fit them, right? So we don't have any scatter guns with a distortion below size 4. Size 4 is the minimum, okay? So, what can you notice? How distortion works. I just explained. The only thing I didn't explain properly is it also deals damage to shields, and it always created some meta problems. The moment those patches where distortions work correctly and disabled ships, they instantly became a meta, because distortion was always dealing usually equal or sometimes more damage to shields than a laser gun. So the question was, why would you ever use a laser gun if you can run majority of distortion and then just one little gun to finish a turned off opponent off, right? So finally CG paid attention to it and kind of did the balance. So if we bring if we look at the numbers on the DPS, I don't have a single gun right now, lethal gun right now here. But if you look at the numbers, oh my god, I was looking at the wrong numbers. I'm sorry, I didn't switch the. Yeah, it's okay. I didn't start the comparison. Let's actually bring in the proper values once again. I instantly look at the numbers and like, wait, why the numbers are so high, right? I'm right talking about the numbers being lower, but they're high. Makes no sense. I'm gonna be bringing a size 3 repeater. There we go. With all that list, just for a comparison, okay? So if we compare the DPS of a size 3 Panther repeater, which is 500, and then look at the repeater of a distortion, it's twice less damage. So the distortion guns usually deal twice less damage to shields than a lethal gun, for exactly the reason of not becoming a combat meta, right? CAG doesn't want it to become a combat meta. They want players to use distortion when they actually want to disable the target, right? And that's about it. If you want to get a combat lethal advantage, you're not going to have it, because you will have a trouble dealing with someone's shields in the first place compared to them dealing full damage to your shields while they're using full lethal, right? I think we can get the CF repeater out of here so it doesn't ruin our cool distortion looks here. Okay, there we go. So how does it work? As I mentioned previously, we have the explosion radiuses. So the explosion radiuses are pretty simple to comprehend. The smaller guns will give you the lesser radius, the bigger guns will give you the bigger radius. But the radiuses have been balanced and tweaked this patch, and they're kinda enough in majority of cases. So size 1 guns, XG1s and sucker punches right here will give you a 7-meter radius. Size 2 will give you 8.5, including the Vanguard nose guns, right? And size 3 will give you 10 meters radiuses. And then there is a trick that Salvation will give you 11, size 4, and Absolution will give you 12. No matter that the single projectile damage of a scattergun is very small, right? So the single projectile damage is low, but the radius is still big. It's like a bit of a hand vavium for now, but it is what it is. I don't think like those 11 and 12 meters are actually necessary, but it's a bit of a convenience reaching a bit further with the spread of the scattergun, right? So the minimum and maximum radiuses, there is like the minimum radius and the maximum radius. Basically, the minimum radius is the radius of dealing like a full distortion damage to a certain component. The maximum radius is like your fall off for damage, all right? Obviously, having a bigger minimal radius with a size 3 guns is kind of convenient because you get to the result quicker, right? Everything else stands like usual guns. The cannons will be better for bigger targets. It's easier to hit, but they will be more consistent. Repeaters will be better for smaller targets. Like all the usual rules apply, right? So they just deal not lethal damage, they deal distortion damage. Everything here is not really necessary down the line. What is interesting is how does this work, right? So for that, we have to go, for example, to power plant. We go to power plant. We don't care what power plant we're talking about, right? We scroll to the right and we find these lines. It is distortion decay rate, maximum distortion, distortion overload ratio, distortion recovery ratio, distortion recovery time, right? This is what's important. Maximum distortion damage, this maximum distortion damage This is basically your distortion HP pool to your component. Hitting with the distortion bubble, with the AoE bubble, that component will apply damage to this maximum distortion. So what is distortion overload ratio? This is when the component will go offline after being distorted. So 0 distortion, if we take the maximum distortion damage or the distortion HP pool, let's call it like that, being 0 as completely functional and being 1 as completely filled up with distortion damage, you can read these values like that. This 1 is completely non-functional, 0 is completely functional. So this random power plant, whatever it is, Braddon, right? To the left, we can see that, right? Will go offline, completely offline, when its health is basically at 0.35. So when the HP pool of a power plant is filled by distortion damage to 35%, it will already go offline. And it will come back online when it will recover to only 30%. How it recovers? It recovers by distortion decay rate. So distortion decay rate is how much of a distortion damage will be bled from this distortion pool that has the distortion damage in it per second, right? This is how much damage will go away per second, obviously if you stop shooting it, right? This is how much damage will go per second away from the pool, and the moment it reaches back to only being filled up by 30% of distortion, it will power up. Distortion recovery time is just like the time it will take to power up after a distortion recovery, right? After that recovery is a go, it will take it 1.4 to power up, right? It doesn't mean that components have a binary state with a distortion, that they're either offline or online. It doesn't mean that. It's just the critical points when they go offline or online, right? The overload and recovery. There are different components that have different overload and recovery ratios. Okay, so even if your component is 50% filled with distortion but still working, it will still make your component work worse. So if your component is able to sustain a 50% distortion damage, it can still work, but it will usually work twice less as effective. The power plant will generate, if it's half full with distortion, it will generate literally half the power it can. The shields will recharge less fast, all that. The guns, after they reworked the guns, they don't seem to be affected in terms of there is no gradient of their potency. They're just either they work or not, but they will re-implement it later because it was the case previously, but I will not touch that, okay? All right, so basically that's how components work, because you can see this is industrial power plant, right? It has a very low limit, 30%, boom, it's gone. 35% is gone. But they're different, 0.9, right? All that stuff. 0.9, it will overload only at 90% distortion, right? But that will recover only at 65. So it will take there will be a long timer, right? So you could ask, for example, hey, Cutlet, but what's the point of making a 0.35% of an HP pool and 0.3 recovery, right? And just give it so much HP? Wouldn't it be easier to just lower the HP and make it from 1 to 0? It's not, because it's different mechanics and it can be played out differently. So what this really means, this is actually not good. These are very bad stats, and it's good. It's an example. What this really means is it will die at 35% of its overall HP pool, but then it can still take another 65% in, right? 65% in, which means you will have to sit there, even without being constantly distorted, for all of that 70%, because it will recover only at 0.3. So you will have to sit there with all that big distortion pool, and you will have to wait for 0.7 to tick off to get to 0.3. Right? It's important. A lot of importance should go into what's your recovery ratio compared to maximum HP. Like, the higher the recovery ratio is, the better. The closer it is to 1, the better. That means you cannot be super over distorted and then sit like a sitting duck for too long, right? So if you're fighting in a team fight, someone like briefly distorted you, if you manage to get them distracted by another opponent, let's say, right, before they like just kill you or whatever, if you have your distortion pool, if you have your recovery ratio close to 100%, no matter how much they will distort you, right, you will recover quickly. You will have to drop like here in the top example, you will have to drop like only 30% of distortion of overall of the pool to get you back working, compared to dropping 70% of it here to get you to the 30% of being distorted, right? Okay, I think that's understandable enough. And they have all like different stats, like all the different types of like industrials and military and stealth and all that. You can go and check that. And like usually I run military, but there might be better options just because of all of I've said, like how you do stuff, like whatever. You can come up with different like solutions for yourself here. All right, I think it's just a good time to jump back into the game, and we will start showing off how that works. All right, guys, we're above Grimhex, and we're gonna commence the tests just to show you how that works. It's a bit tricky to understand unless you see the distortions visually that they're being shot at you. To understand you're being distorted, CAG is aware of it, and they're probably looking into a solution like on HUD to make that more visible for you. But for general knowledge, if you want to make sure like to see if you're distorted or not while still not being offline, your help will come in a way of a heat MFD. Don't try looking at the power MFD. You want to be looking at the heat MFD and go to the items. So obviously the most important things you care about is your power plant and your coolers, because that's what will make you go offline. Okay, so there will be a bar right here when I point with where I point with my mouse that will show a small lighting icon, and it will fill up. You don't see it when you're not getting distorted, but it will appear here. All right, here is our workhorse, Mantis. We are going to distort it now. Let me first do this. Can you put the shields to maximum?
Yep, done.
So his shields are at maximum with the resistances, and look how they diminish while I shoot 2 side 3 lethal repeaters, okay? You could approximately feel, right, the timing. Now let them completely recover. Here they are. Now watch me shooting the distortions. I wasn't even able to bring them down with a full burst, and it was longer, right? That's why I'm saying that, because the charge is lower, the distortions. I have 57 shots in Panthers, and I have only 31, but they take longer because of the rate of fire. But you could see the damage was less, right? So that's what I'm saying. Every time you go for distortions, right now you sacrifice your initial damage to shields, right? That's the part of the balancing. CAG is slowly implementing for distortions, and they will do more balancing for it in future. So put down the shields right now, just remove them. We can also look, it's not too big, but we can also look at the EM signature of the ship, right here, because all the components are working. Besides the shields, you could see the drop when he disabled the shields, right? Right, boys, we've reduced the shields of this Mantis, and now we're gonna spit all our distortion damage into him, see him go offline. We'll watch the EM here, and Kowalski will try to power cycle back into the power as soon as he can. Also, let me know, Kowalski, when you're completely down. Okay, just say you're down.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
I'm down.
Alright, he's down. He will now try to recover. He will spam the R, which is like flight ready button. Try to recover. We can see like ship is doing attempts to recover, but it still cannot. Like some components try to turn on, but they just cannot.
And I'm up.
And he's
Online.
up. So you can see like the ship isn't really down for a long period of time, right? It's kind of okay. Obviously, like in one-to-one combat, that would probably mean you're dead, though in a multiple player scenarios, things can go differently. It doesn't really mean that you're dead, right? It could be different. Like the attackers can be attacked by other party, they will have to divert and all that. Though it's not enough also to board the ship, right? If you want to. So we'll talk about that a bit later. So there is one catch to that. I mean, it's all good and we understand how it works. So the ship is small enough, like this entire ship is small enough so you don't care where you shoot, right? Probably the bubble of 10 meters of size 3 guns will reach the components anyway. It gets a bit more tricky with bigger ships, and we will move on to that. Before we move on to that, I would like to talk about something else. So when we move to the bigger ships, you have the idea of what I'm talking about. The difference between a distortion lock and a heat lock. Distortion lock is just literally what you just saw. When the ship is getting powered down because the power plant gets enough of distortion to reach the threshold and just completely turn off, okay? There is something that we call a heat lock. A heat lock happens when a ship is getting overheated to a point where their power plant is so hot, it just fails. Not because of the distortion damage, but because of overheating, right? But how do you achieve that if the ship just goes offline? The point is, coolers and power plants are different. They have different distortion values, distortion HP pools, and the bleed rates. There are scenarios where you can deal enough distortion damage to turn off coolers, but not turn off power plant for a prolonged amount of time where ship will not get cooled down and the power plant will just keep working and get overheated. What happens when the heat lock happens? Heat lock is much more dangerous than a just distortion lock. The simple reason to it is the rate at which power plant and coolers can bleed off the heat is much slower than they can bleed off the distortion. So it gets into a deadlock where the coolers cannot dissipate the heat from the components because they don't have energy from the power plant, and the power plant cannot turn on because it does not have any cooling capacity. It's over the heat lock. It's just like with the distortion damage, because the power plant, any component has its own rate of temperature at which it will turn off, and then it's the rate of temperature at which it will turn back on, right? So if you disable the coolers of the ship, but let the power plant working, it will reach its maximum temperature and it's GG, it's a deadlock. Now, the only option for ship to recover is to passively wait while a passive emission of heat will happen without any power, without any work of coolers, and the power plants will slowly drop the heat to the point where they can enable themselves once again, and when that happens, they instantly activate the coolers, and then all the heat is instantly off because the coolers are working and everything is fine. Obviously, that's considering you're not shot anymore. If you're shot, you're probably dead, right? Because the heat lock is very long. We're gonna show you what the heat lock is. So I will be shooting at the slow rate to not destroy his power plant by distortion, but keep his coolers at pressure, and when they fail, eventually the ship will just overheat and get heat locked. Okay? And there we go. You can see the IR signature builds up on him, while he still like remains the same look. See? That means the coolers are failing. And he's off. And he is completely off. And now Kowalski 1, spam R to recover. Try to power up. Just constantly spam R and I will see when you're on. Something spiked, but it couldn't take it. You can see the IR slowly goes down. Slowly. Oh, he's back up, and guess what? He is still not able to control, and now he is kind of up. Okay, he's back up. You could see the heat lock is much more deadlier than a distortion lock. Like, it took, like, what? A minute or two to recover compared to, like, what? 10 seconds or something with the distortion lock. That's what the heat lock is when your coolers fail and your ship overheats. Your power plants in majority of cases like overheat. So that's the heat lock. At this point we can just start bringing bigger ships, and I will start showing you spots. A bigger ship, boys. This is a Freelancer Max. With this ship, it already matters a bit where you hit. In majority of cases, not everywhere, the components are somewhere in the middle, right? So the shields are down already. We will pretend we want to disable the guy, right? Do you have, when I do this, do you have any hits on the MFD? Am I doing distortion damage? You're not getting it. When I do this, are you getting it? Now, yes. Okay. The center of Freelancer Max, I'm shooting with distortions. You can see the EM just dropping down instantly, and he's powered down. So obviously shooting somewhere there will not deal the damage, but the ship is still small enough for a 10-meter radius. So if you kind of hit the center, it will create a bubble enough for the ship to go down. You see, he recovered pretty fast, but obviously if you keep doing that, he will power down and will not be able to recover, right? You have to keep. Or you can try completely heat locking the person the way I showed before with the Mantis, and to keep him powered down longer to be able to board. The problem is heat locking a static target is quite impossible, because heat locking doesn't happen instantly. Heat locking takes time for the temperature and power plants to build up, so obviously they will fly, and then the whole point of long heat lock will be ruined. But yeah, keeping him locked and just boom, boom, open up the back ramp, get in, all that. Obviously someone has to keep shooting to keep the ship turned off, right? So EM0, he's dead. I'll wait for like 10 seconds or so, he will recover, right? Boom, there he goes, apparently. Yep, there he goes. I will be going mostly through cargo hauling ships, because that's like what we're talking about. All set, good to go. So as you can see, this is a bigger ship, right? That's where the things start to matter. If I'm gonna be shooting here, That's gonna do nothing. I kind of know this, right? Because I don't need to actually test it because we've tested it all. If I'm gonna be shooting here, this is not gonna do anything. But if I'm gonna be shooting here at his first compartment, and the thing I have to warn you in advance, don't try to look where the physical visual components are in the ship. It's not gonna work in majority of cases, especially with the older ships. The components or compartments when you see like shield generator or something, that's not real for now, okay? There are invisible components in the ship, invisible to a player, that are there that will actually take that AoE damage, okay? So if you shoot here, right, from this hatch, around from this hatch to like through here, he will get turned down, right? So if we do this, and the ship is down, you could see the lights drop, right? You could see the light drop. That's the spot for Caterpillar. Preferably from the top. I think you cannot get it from the bottom. Maybe you can, but I think you cannot. Keep spamming R to power back up. We'll definitely see it by the lights on the doors. Longer ships take sometimes longer to recover, depending on the components. And he's back up. The lights are up. There we go. Okay, good. While the Caterpillar is here, I want to show you something before I forget. Can you just start flying, put your shields back up, it's fine, start flying somewhere in the space and keep like speed of like 300 or something. I just want to show the viewers it's a bit not that easy as they think they are. No, the shield should be up, dude. And I will be fighting through the shields. Okay, shields are kind of up. Just start flying, yeah, at like 300, 400 or something and keep the speed. So you will be following a target and you'll all like kind of start to deal the damage, right? You go full guns, for example, right? And you'll try to take on the one shield side, for example, right? Slowly like crunching it, munching it. You will still obviously use Distortion because more damage is better, right? It doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it's still dealing damage, right? Because we all know Distortion damage will not be dealt through the shields, right? That's the main thing you have to remember. Distortion damage will not be dealt through the shield, right? So you'll deal with all this dissing, and now you're finally done with, almost done with the shield phase, right? Man, even 300 and we have this kind of a itching, right? We're still dealing with the shields. It's really small, it's red, and all that. Oh, we finally see the hits. And then you're like, okay, you know, like, I should be distorting. And you like go and like, oh, you watch where the bubbles land, right? Go to it in advance and like, hey, like, why the ship is not going off? Like, what's going on? You know, what's going on? Oh no, like, what's going on? Look, I'm hitting where I have to hit, and then you look at these bubbles that are behind. Okay, you know, you like move, you like move here. Why it's not like, why it's not going off, Cutlet? I'm doing like you said, yeah. Because there are other shields around, and the moment you hit somewhere with Distortion, where the bubble reaches other shields, those other shields will absorb the Distortion damage, which will not allow for it to penetrate to the components. And it's not an easy task, especially if you don't have EMP. And we'll get to EMPs later, okay? Because you have to keep all the shields at bay. So Distortion deals AoE, so it touches all the shields and spreads the damage, right? You see the problem? I'm trying to remove the shields, but I'm already killing the ship. That's not what we want, right? So you have to pounder with the Distortion guns, and it will take insane amount of time and effort for a single player. And this caterpillar is not even rotating, right? He's just keeping the same trajectory at a low speed, like 300 meters, not a kilometer. It's like super painful, right? The moment you start shooting like the front shield with your main guns, guess what? The left and right will start building up because you're not hitting them, right? So, but the moment you try to hit at the center with your Distortion guns, you cannot hit with your main guns because your main guns will damage the ship, right? That's an issue, and you'll have to deal with it. The easy workaround for that is a Distortion, but I'll talk about it a bit later, okay? Obviously, I'm not gonna struggle right now for half an hour solo with only 2 Distortion guns trying to keep all the shields at bay, not recharging because I'm constantly dealing damage to them. That's gonna make video a half an hour longer, right? But that's a good example. Can you put down the shields right now, Kowalski? Okay, now the shields went off, and you can see the ship instantly went down dark. And here we go to another problem. It's drifting. How to abort it? The question is you don't. The question is you don't, and there are 2 ways to deal with that. First way is just waiting. Every ship that drifts like that will slowly lose its speed. To drop 300 meters, you'll probably have to keep him distorted like that for half an hour too. I don't know, at least like 15 minutes. You can see I'm slowly braking, right, with my ship. I'm slowly braking with my ship because I in my decoupled mode, because the ship slowly brakes, but it's like the amount of speed drop is crazy. So Kowalski, can you tell me, are you now in the decoupled mode? Yeah, it's like 1 meter per second. Are you now in the decoupled mode? Coupled, okay. So I'm gonna show a little trick here that will work only on coupled pilots. I will let him power up for a second. Don't touch your control, Kowalski, at all. Just don't touch your controls. It just will be a basic example. I will let him power up for a second and put him down again. So we're at 251 approximately right now, right? We'll let him bleed, all the Distortion damage. Gonna take him some time. Just try to power cycle, right? Try to power cycle, but not like just do any control input. And now we shoot him again. Oh, you were in cruise mode, right? You were in cruise mode. Okay, can you remove the cruise mode? Unfortunately, that's how it works. Remove the cruise mode and try to power cycle. All right, we drop his speed. Do it again. But that trick works only against people that are flying in a certain way and are not experienced, which a lot of traders are. We drop the speed again. Then it's a bit harder to follow. We'll keep, like, I'll skip that rotation. I'll skip this rotation. Oh, I lost my fucking gun. That's what happens when the dissing kicks in. I breached his entrance. He's at 30 kilometers now. 30 meters, sorry. And at this point, you can kind of bleed his speed out, but we'll just wait for another time, for another power up. 5, 3. He is actually at rest at this point because of the collision. So the basic thing is, if they're not pointing where their vector is, or if they're pointing with cruise opposite of the vector, or if they have the cruise turned off, but they're in a coupled mode. The moment the ship powers back on because they're in a coupled mode, the first thing the ship will try to do is brake because the coupled mode is on. But that's not always the case. Traders will run away in decoupled mode to rotate. Traders will have the cruise on and all that. So that is just like something, when you got them powered down, something you have to try once. Okay, can you slow them down like that? Can you slow them down like that? If it won't work, it won't work. It's a good way to stop them, but it's not a panacea, right? It might not work. It probably won't work, but it's an easy way to stop them. Another way to stop them is to ram them. I'm sorry. You can have a dedicated ship that has things like wings, like I just lost one, because he was going like 50, but the moment I rammed him with my wing, the ship stopped. There is a weird way, game engine on the server or on the client has a weird way of interpreting like physics. So if the ship is offline and you hit it with another ship, very often the ship will start braking after the hit, right? So if you have a dedicated ship who you can sacrifice for a try to stop the ship, you can do that. You can put him offline, and then you will have an experienced pilot. It's funny to ask an experienced pilot to do that, right? Because he has to know how to accumulate the desync to hit the ship with a certain part, not to hopefully die, like with a wing, right? In order to stop the ship. Because another physical like logic will activate on the client or server, and it will break the ship down. So that's another way to stop. So you either just wait, that's the first way. Second way, you try the trick with letting them power up. That is especially useful if they fall in atmo, because if they fall in atmo too hard, they're just gonna explode, right? If they're falling in atmo, you wanna let them recover closer to the surface, so they brake a bit, they mitigate the speed, and then you power them down again, and they like kind of safely, quote unquote, land. The third way is a bit of a ram, but it's very unreliable, and you have to execute it in a proper way with giving the ship your like kind of fall off part, and hopefully they have a fall off part, so like it kind of mitigates each other. You lose parts, but like they stop and you're still alive, right? And they're alive. Yeah, that's just the part of the distortion stuff, because like you have to know it if you're willing to utilize distortions for more than just trolling people and turning them off, but actually trying to stop the ships and board them, right? Okay, that went along with showing the sweet spot for a caterpillar. Let's move on. This is a Cuddy Blue test, which will work for all the Cuddys, basically. Let's do it quick, just to show you it works on basically all the sizes of ships. The best spot for a Cuddy is behind the turret. Actually, literally the middle of the ship, right? The best spot would be behind the turret, from the top. Oh, sorry, wrong guns. One gun left, and the EM is dropping down, and he's offline. Apparently. No, he's still alive, actually. He probably lost some shields and all that. Because I'm shooting only with one gun, it's harder. Yeah, I'm heat locking him right now. You can see IR signature. I'm off, yeah. Okay, I offline you. You could see, like, IR signature went up. I was slowly getting the heat lock on him, but apparently power plants at some point just went out. And that's it. Okay, so, yeah, the thing I wanted to mention that, like, the approximate size of a Connie or a Cuddy or a Freelancer, all of those ships, you don't really have to like aim too much and know the spots. Just shoot somewhere in the middle and you will get it sooner or later. All right, guys, same story. 600i, gotta know the spot. The spot is here on the top of the roof. The good spot is like shooting somewhere at this glass roof, if you may. We'll try to find through the shields. Takes some time. It actually takes a lot of time with distortions, dude. It's good they nerfed that, though. It's a good example, like, you want to turn someone off, you gotta fight through it.
Want me to just turn off my shields?
No. I didn't ask for a reason. I wanted to see if that's gonna be a problem turning it off also with 3 shield sides still being there. Or not.
Right.
Anything happening on this? Oh, yeah, your shields went down. They broke to distortion damage, yep.
Yeah, Frostburn and the Super Dry. Yeah, both the coolers. I'm off.
Yeah, and you're off, yeah. So that's the spot. If you will shoot here, guys, or here, or somewhere there, it won't hit. You have to know the specific spots for bigger ships, right? I want to show the spots. So MSR is tricky. Shooting MSR here or anywhere here will give you nothing. Okay? So even shooting at the top here of this wing will not do nothing. The way to disable it is the bottom of the wing. This is your, like, sweet spot. Let the shield go back down. This is where you want to shoot. This area. It's even hard now. MSR is very tricky. Yep, okay. It started heat locking. You can see it started heat locking. The IR goes up and the EM drop. Kowalski, please back off, and I'm gonna show what's so tricky about all of the Starlifters, okay? So Starlifters, the trick with the Starlifters, there are 2 ways to turn off a Starlifter. One is heat locking them. Second, disabling the power plant, which are separated. Coolers are in one spot, power plants are in another spot. The trick with the power plants, though, 2 of the power plants are separated, the virtual power plants, not the real ones that you see in the ship. The virtual ones are separated on the opposite sides of the ship, which is close to impossible to do solo, especially if you're chasing a moving target. So to disable a Starlifter with power plants, oh, sorry, you will have to be doing this. I'm shooting here, and only one of his power plant is disabled. No matter how long I shoot, it's not gonna change. So I have to shoot here, and then I have to shoot here. Obviously, you should do it together with 2 people, right? Shoot here. Or I think it's even VTOLs. Give me a second. I think it's even VTOLs. A bit back. And you can see it finally went down. You can see the EM finally went down, right? We disabled both of the power plants simultaneously. Yeah, I think it's the VTOLs. Sorry, I was showing the wrong part. It's the VTOLs, right? This is like a tricky thing to do when everyone is rotating and circling. It's real. It's not easy. The other way, Kowalski, please spam R to recover or whatever your button is. Okay, and he's already up. You understand how consistent you have to be with distortion damage. The other way is to heat lock the Herc, which is easier, especially for a single person. It is his belly. Around the turret. Around the middle turret, right? So the coolers will bleed off much slower in front of, before the turret or in front of the turret. Like at the back or at the front, like towards the nose. Oh no, there we go. He starts heating up. He starts heating up.
When I said in front, I meant like from the direction the turret's facing, which is
yeah,
back, So.
There we go. You can see the IR is building up, yep. It will take time, but they're slow to recover, so you can have like the pauses in between your shots, right? And it goes down. It heat locked, and now it will recover like for eternity. We can actually wait and see how long it will take for a Herrick to recover. I'll cut it too much slower timing in the recording in the video, but we can just wait on like while just streaming it and see how different it is. It took him like 10 seconds to recover from the power plant damage, right? We can go and take a little nap for these components to bleed out all the heat. It looks simple if we're dealing with a static target. In the combat environment, when you chase someone, it's a lot of pressure, especially with all the... I don't want to talk about the Alta Force right now. Yeah, man. He is still trying to recover, just letting you know, boys. He's still spamming and the ship is not online. That's why a lot of people think that when you bring someone down, you cannot recover, because they don't understand the fundamental basics of how the game works, and they think this ship is completely dead. They just give up, no matter what. And you're like, pay me money, I'll let you go. And they're like, no, my ship is dead anyway. Why would I? Just a griefer. You're trying to take my money and then I'm left with this dead ship with cargo. It takes a lot of time. You're still spamming the recovery? Can someone get a Carrack? Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Boom.
Wow, I
Hit,
my
bro.
words.
Yeah. Don't look at that. That's different targeting. Yeah. It's like it was almost 10 minutes. It was almost 10 minutes. That's why majority of people say like the ship is dead. It's not. You just gotta wait. But obviously the ship is dead in terms of if you're one-on-one and someone got you, you're dead, obviously. But it will recover. It just takes a lot of time for some components to recover. Okay. Well, let me switch the MFDs. Let me switch the MFDs.
Oh, okay. I wanted to see how quickly I could shut you off.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking. You can see the bars moving. You see? Half avalanches, Maelstrom, half.
Okay.
It's
I didn't tap your screen in time.
You can see them building up, you see? You see?
I'm watching. Yeah, I see it.
And you could see like the ability of avalanches to dissipate heat, it just fluctuates. I'm off the power plant threshold. I'm gonna come back pretty fast. Like 10-15 seconds probably. It wasn't the coolers.
Interesting. So the blast radius on absolutions is the highest.
It's the biggest, yeah.
It's,
12 meters, yeah. Yeah, I'm back online, yeah. But you can see like how different the bleed off of the power plant is compared to the coolers. Because like the power plant is long gone, coolers are still recovering. Yeah, my FR shield, look at that, dude. My FR shields are only 30% recovered. You see that?
Wow.
Yep.
It's gonna be a long time before your shields can come back up.
Yeah, you're losing your shields from distortions, you're not getting them back, dude. So I'll cut it to the point with 400i quickly. The power plants are somewhere here, but really what you want, power plants are, I think they are even separated as the, at the 8 Starlifters power plants are. What you want to concentrate on is on coolers. You should find coolers here. The distance between the airlock and the wing is your sweet spot for the coolers to hit log the 400i. Honestly, that's my recommendation. Oh. Let's start shooting. We can see the build-up already on the IR. Getting out of control. It will take some time. We can see it's getting worse. They drop the distortion very slowly, So you have time to maneuver around it, place few shots, you know, maneuver around it, place few shots, try to catch up. If the ship would be flying and actually shooting, it would go down much faster because the components using the engines, the weapons, everything, it will generate more heat, right? Shields being offline would generate, online would generate more heat. It takes some time, visually, but in a realistic scenario, it would go down much faster. It's just the way the ships are built. Everyone is unique because like CAG is very inconsistent in building like ships and its logic. It's like the basic heat emissions that are created by engines. There is something unique to the ship. For example, they're low. Or something, you know? Oh, there we go. Overheated. And it's a heat lock for like a very long time. That's a GG. That's 400i for you boys. So you know the spot. I think the last thing I wanted to show is the Carrack. We've covered majority of cargo hauling ships that you want to actually not kill but capture. Alright, the Carrack is out, no shields. I'll cut the chase and I'll get straight to business. Here's your sweet spot. The belly. The cargo belly. Dealing with a bit of shields here. The shields are absorbing. You can see the shields drop, they went offline, they're distorted, the EM signature drop. And the ship is offline. And that's the Carrack. Again, if you think, oh, but that would take so much time, that would take like so much time to kill the Carrack. I agree to an extent that after the shields are down, it's faster to turn the ship off than destroy it. Though trust me, in the real conditions, in a real chase, I'm not even talking about the Carrack being ridiculously like faster than any possible ship, any interdictor. Like few combat ships can keep up with the Carrack. I'll skip on that. It just, in realistic scenario, like you have to bring down all the shields, like EMP'd multiple times, get on the belly while it's rotating. Guys, trust me. If a person, if it's just a complete AFK trader, yeah, that might be easy, but we don't talk about those people, right? In real scenario, when someone is half knowing what they're doing, it's gonna be such a problem already. All right. Now, EMPs. I would like to, before we wrap this up, I need to talk about the EMPs. Blues, can you please stay in a Carrack? I'll take the EMP. Alright boys, we are in our lovely Warlock, the workhorse of a lot of pirates, right? We will enable our EMP if the game will allow me to. Okay, so let's talk back about the situation we were covering earlier, where you down, like, for example, the back shield of a ship, and the ship is running away, right? And then it's still a problem to disable it, because like all of your distortion gun damage is being absorbed by the other shield sides, and I said the EMP can help you with that. Like overall, again, what is EMP? There are multiple sizes of EMPs, starting from the EMP on a Cyclone, whatever, AA, a tiny small one, and then going up to a Hawk, which is I think size 2, considered to be size 2 EMP, was less damage but very fast cooldown. And then there are size 4 EMPs, which are both a Warlock and a Sentinel. The Warlock's EMP is better, it has the same damage and stats as the Sentinel, but it has a shorter cooldown. But it's not a Sentinel, right? It's not a Sentinel in terms of the ship, so you decide. Why the Warlock is a workhorse for piracy? Because of its speed. Majority of trade chases are gonna happen on high speeds where traders will just zoom in one direction, and that's why the Warlock is better. and on top of that a better EMP, you don't really need too much of a protection if you're trying to stop and board a trader with no escorts. If the escorts are there, you should have the dedicated ships to deal with that, right? So back to the distortion and EMP stuff. So let's imagine we're in this kind of a situation. Trev, please put pressure on the back shield of a Carrack. So the shield, yeah, that's me shooting machine gun. It's okay. The red back of a Carrack means nothing. It has almost 0 HP. It will still like go. The damage will still go into the main part. It doesn't matter. Like never get like surprised with it.
It's just like the Starlifter.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start charging my MP. Get it down. It's not down yet. Okay, now it's down. So if we go and shoot the belly, it won't turn off, right? Because of the keep shooting, because like I need it to be down. Yeah. But if we like chase him, right, and I pop an EMP, the bubble will go through that and will apply distortion damage to shields. So the EMPs are not strong enough right now to turn off the shield when the one side of the shield is down. But that damage from the EMP will get slowly accumulated on the shields. And we all know the shields lose the distortion for a very long time. They don't recover quickly. So we'll apply another EMP, right? We'll charge up. Usually that is done with multiple warlocks, don't get me wrong. It's just, I'm just pointing it out. As simple as that. We'll pop another EMP. And now, second EMP, placed very close, right, was enough to, can you guys stop firing right now? Yeah, thank you. The second EMP placed very close to the Carrack. Though in desync, your ability to place it that close is unrealistic, but we're just theory crafting. Placing another EMP gave the shields enough of distortion damage so the shields are distorted and then go off. The ship is still maneuverable. It still has its coolers, it still has its power plant, it has an EM signature. But what this allows us to do is get with the guns, right, and actually hit the components. Either apply more EMPs or hit the components directly. So Trev, please hit the belly. The cargo, the cargo belly, yep. So now the ship goes offline, right? That's where EMPs are kinda handy. We can see it's offline, almost 0 EM signature, and it will keep dropping. All right, boys, not to stall it further, I think that is about it about the distortion guns and EMPs and overall distortion damage, how it works in 3.15. That's been a huge change in the patch that now actually, finally, we can affect all the components with guns, not only EMPs. The bubbles are pretty big for us to able and to disable the target, to actually reach the components. There will be a lot of balancing done to distortion guns in future, but that's what we have for now. And we're happy about it as pirates. I'll wrap the video on this good note. And if you're guys watching me on Twitch right now, thank you for bearing with all this nonsense. If you're guys watching me on YouTube, yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments, and call me a griefer as much as you want. All right, boys, I love you. Bye.